Welcome back to the French Rugby Podcast with me, Tim Groves, ex-Scotland international and adopted Frenchman, Johnny BT. And we're going to be joined shortly by Toulon's New Zealand-born, former Australian under-20 international, current Samoa centre, Duncan Paia'aua. European semi-finals, Johnny, were a good few days ago now, so we won't spend too much time poring over those in great detail. But let's chat a bit about them because you were pitchside in Bordeaux with the BT Sport team.
Yeah.
So talk us through the atmosphere because it looked pretty special.
It was special. That was the word I was going to use. You've taken it right out of my mouth. And that is how all games of rugby should be. Like, you get those international weekends where it's absolutely pumping, but that for club rugby and European rugby was right up there. And I mean, even from the reception that La Rochelle fans gave the bus as it arrived, like, you've never heard anything like it, mate. We were just next to them doing little bits with the camera, and like we had to stop because it was so loud. It was absolutely phenomenal. And then that stadium, which was built, I think, in 2016 for the Euros, it's now Bordeaux's football stadium, and they only ever sell out the bottom tier because they're now in Ligue 2.
Oh, really?
And so it's never really full. They had, I think I was there for France-Georgia last year in the autumn, but to see it full, to see it coloured yellow and black like that, to see the noise for the bus, but then the noise as the game got going and the action started getting in its flow, it was absolutely incredible. And it was just special, just one of those days that, again, you were lucky to be there to have seen it, and you just wish that more rugby days were like that worldwide. It was absolutely incredible. So La Rochelle have bottled something over the past decade, coming up from Pro D2, built on a few big players that are still there. There'll be a massive hole when they leave. But in terms of a squad, what they've built and a fan base now, they'll have 80 sellouts, I think it is. They'll get 80 sellouts by the end of this month. And it's just a juggernaut in terms of, the playing setup and what they produce, but then the club behind the scenes, the infrastructure, and the people that are in charge. So an incredible job and a wonderful game of rugby. And the atmosphere was as good as I've seen. It was incredible.
And what about the game itself? Because we chatted a bit about it with Greg last week, and we described it as a last dance for this core group of extra players, but it did seem like La Rochelle were too strong.
Mate, there was a massive gulf, and I don't think we appreciated it, but there were certain bits of the Saracens and Gloucester game where, they overpowered them, but this was just, some of it was men against boys. And the power game, when it came on at scrum time, there was penalties, maul game, they were knocked back. But then that blend of power that we talked about, so whether it's a Botia who had to leave the field early, whether it's Greg getting them on the front foot, whether it's Antonio with Skelton 300 kgs going through a scrum or bossing the gain line, they're just a juggernaut that's so hard to stop. Like, every single one of them is so good. And they have in the back line normally Adonti, but they had Favre, they had Sutini, he was phenomenal as well. The ability to beat a man or go through a man. There's just a gulf, I think, especially now with the Prem, in terms of the salary cap and what they can produce up against the big French side. So, look, La Rochelle was a massive gulf. And I don't think I realised until the game got underway that it was finished really by the first half. The distance was that big. So I think now, this is probably weirdly the first real test that La Rochelle are going to have in this competition. They haven't lost since the final that they lost against Toulouse 2 years ago. And rightly now we see the top two sides in the final. So this will be a massive test, a different test, and a repeat of last year's final, which I'm really looking forward to. But there was a big difference between Exeter and La Rochelle at the weekend.
And what about Toulouse's defeat to Leinster in Dublin? Because obviously leaking 28 points in sin-bin periods is a headline. It's a major difference between the two teams. But covering the game, I don't want to doubt someone of the coaching caliber of Ugo Moller.
You've just done it.
You've just done it. I'm about to, yeah. I couldn't fathom the decision to have a centre injured, bring on your backup scrum half and shift two of the best players in the world out of position. I know they can play there, but to areas where they can't affect the game as much. What was your take on it?
Well, I think there's a massive, I'm not sure if it was a fad, but with Fabien Galtier doing it with the national team, I think there's this massive stretch to go 6-2 so that your pack is dominant. But like I've always been personally a fan of a 5-3, even if that meant that I was not getting on the bench.
Yeah.
I was like, you need your core players and your core team. And you mentioned two players playing out of position, but the knock on is that it's three. So Dupont has to move to 10, Intermac had to move to 12, and Aki had to move to 13. So
Yeah.
that's an entire rejig of your backline. You're moving the best player in the world potentially too, if you want to throw Roman Intermac in that bracket as well.
And surely, but you have Malia who plays outside centre for Argentina. He could have just moved there and then brought Retier on the wing, couldn't you?
Yeah, you absolutely could. But when the choice is made to go 6-2, that is the gamble that you make, and that you're hoping that your backline makes it through to 60 minutes and therefore everything can be covered. And, you're getting through 20, 15 minutes where it might not be that big a difference toward the end of a game. But when you're getting through that big of a chunk of the game and ultimately your entire backline shifts, it's a massive stretch. You add that to the fact that potentially in a top 14 game against mediocre opposition that might work, but you're up against Leinster, like an absolute machine. So I don't know. It's a personal choice. I think that's now been proven that the 6-2 is dangerous and it can go blow back in your face. And then that was the big talking point, really. But there were three, the two yellow cards as well. And those all together, Tom Ramos, I don't think can have any questions over his yellow card. Netty, that's been contentious as well. But I don't know, when you're 28 points down with those two yellow cards, and the question of whether one of them should have been a yellow card and actually if Van der Fly was going looking for it. But look, just a sort of clusterfuck for Toulouse, really. A whole range of different things didn't go well for them. They played well in fits and starts, but against Leinster, you have to be exceptional. And they know that from how they went out this time last year under fatigue and different scenarios, losing a few players in the semis last year, and they just weren't at the level required to beat them. So that being said, I genuinely believe, and I pitched for Toulouse last weekend because you want the two French sides to go through, but we've got the two best sides in the final. Leinster, La Rochelle now will be absolutely titanic.
And then Toulon in the Challenge Cup semi-final. That's some effort, isn't it? To nil a very decent Benetton side playing with 14 men for 74 minutes. And then obviously we now know that Charles Olivon's red card has been rescinded.
Thank God. But because again, I don't know how I know they have to protect the player, but there wasn't even enough conclusively video evidence-wise for me to red card them. So could you imagine having that red card and then being rescinded 5 days later and losing that game against the Treviso side that, as you mentioned, have been exceptional in the URC, but Toulon managed to dig deep. Big Sergio, man of the match against this countryman, which must have been a nice feeling, given everything that he's been through in the past 3-4 years and not being part of the Italian extended squad. So a big moment for him getting that, an almighty assist as well that we can talk through with our guest in a minute. But a great final again, two sides that have been flying high, Glasgow and Toulon, on the Friday night in Dublin. That'll be another phenomenal final. So I'm glad that they made it through. I'm glad that Charles' red has been rescinded because it was ridiculous. And now they can look forward to hopefully finishing in the top 6 as well, and making it through to the knockout rounds of the top 14 whilst competing in the Challenge Cup final, which will be cool for them too.
Let's get our guest on now then, and we can have a chat with a man who was born in New Zealand, played for Australia under 20 level against the Barbars as well, is now representing Samoa, and has been playing a key role in the Toulon midfield in recent years. Duncan Paia'aua joins us. How you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks for having me, guys.
We'll come to your journey in France shortly, but we were just chatting about the game at the weekend, and 74 minutes against a decent Benetton side to nil them with 14 men, it must be pretty satisfying.
Yeah, it was a massive effort. A little bit worried there when our captain Charles got sent off with the red card, but the boys really dug deep, especially with 14 men against a really good Benetton side. That's pretty much, they're mostly the Italian team, so we did really well to hang in there and keep them to 0.
Speaking of Italians, not a bad assist for your try by old Sergio Parise. He's 40 in September, but how good is he to play with?
He's so good. He might be 39, but the way he looks after his body, he seems like he can play for another 10 years. He's still got all that experience, and if it was any other forward, I probably wouldn't have told him to kick it, but because it was Sergio, I told him to kick it.
He's so good, mate. Could you see any chance of him coming back and getting that swan song with Italy at the World Cup? Because he is still so good.
I still think he's got a chance. Like the way, like I said, he looks after his body every day, how professional he is, and it's probably why he's lasted so long playing at 39, doing those kind of stuff. I think it's only fair if he does get at least one game at the World Cup.
Let's talk about you then, because you were playing with the Reds and spent a bit of time with the Wallabies, as we mentioned before.
Yeah.
But then 4 years or so ago, how does the move to Toulon come about?
Well, it's amazing. I think just just being in the south of France, the beach right there, the lifestyle is good, the rugby's good, especially the fans. Like they really embrace their players here. It's a bit different in Australia. Like there's a lot of sports that you can support, and like rugby league's a big one, AFL's a big one. So uh, rugby union doesn't really get the notoriety that it should, but like it does over here. So moving over here was probably the best decision I've made for my career. It's made me love the game again, and I'm really enjoying my time here.
Did you find it quite tricky to settle in initially because you had that Achilles injury and then
Yeah,
it was followed by COVID? So was that quite a strange start to life in France?
yeah, it was probably one of the worst starts I could have had moving to Toulon, especially with that Achilles injury is a pretty big one, and it was a pretty tough one to get back from. Uh, uh, and it was my first big move away from home, so far away, and then just sitting on the sidelines and doing rehab for 8 9 months. I miss my family a lot. So, and then when I was ready to play, and I was making my comeback, COVID hit that week that I was meant to make my comeback. So,
Oof.
I played pretty much a year without rugby. But I guess I look at it as a blessing in disguise, sort of, because it gave me time to heal properly, not rush into playing straight after an Achilles injury. So I guess COVID really kind of helped me, I guess, to get back to 100%.
And what's it like being you join a new club and then you're completely on the sidelines? Because it's different in different clubs, but Johnny will have experienced it before. Sometimes if you're in the treatment room, you're almost cast aside. No one pays you any attention.
Exactly. Like I'd go to the games, watch it on the sideline. Nobody would know who I was. The security would ask me, "Do you have a ticket?" and stuff like this. So especially just coming to a new club and people asking if I have a ticket to come watch my own team was a bit frustrating at first. But once I got playing and got in the thick of things, I've really enjoyed it.
And what's the club like in general? Because I think people forget, or the sort of generation before was Johnny Wilkinson's, your Matt Gittos, your Bujilal era, the sort of infrastructures of the club were poor, but they had the stars. Now it's like the stars have been scaled back a little bit, but it looks like if you follow like Mathieu Bastero on
Yeah.
Instagram and you see around the training ground, it looks unbelievably well set up now. So what is the club like behind the scenes?
Oh, the club is amazing. When I first got here, like you said, there's a team full of superstars, pretty much a barbarians team for those really successful years that they had. But the sheds were pretty much in containers, and there was only one or two showers or something. So um, Bernard, the president, has come in and just taken over the reins and made it really feel um, like a top tier club, and I think that just makes it all the much better coming in the training every day.
You mentioned the president there, Bernard Lemaitre. Obviously,
Yeah,
Johnny spoke about Mourad Boudjelal, and there were a lot of stories involving him. The
yeah.
club seems a lot more stable nowadays, but how much do you see and hear from Bernard?
We used to hear from him a lot last season, but this season I think we don't. He's been behind the scenes a lot. Comes into the sheds now and then, but I think with all the staff that we have, I think he has really put faith into Pierre and Frank and how they run the team and how they can get the most success out of the team. And I didn't have much time to do with Morad, but I had a lot of stories coming over here. But since I've been here, Bernard's been pretty much the one, and he's probably one of the best guys I've ever met.
Your paths crossed with Murad then?
Yeah, I signed in Toulon and when he was still the president, and he was here.
How did that go? Come on, mate, fill us in.
Like just I didn't have much time with him, but the aura around him, like we'd be laughing and stuff around the sheds, and he'd walk in, and everybody just suddenly be quiet, and I was like, what the heck's going on here? And I think he had a big say with the club when he was here, so. But maybe, I don't know, I wouldn't say lucky, but I was probably fortunate enough that he wasn't here when I was here.
It is a special club, though. Like when you look at what's been created, I look back at my time. I finished in Bayonne, and you have like the hymn, the Peña Bayona, and everything that goes on before. And from Toulon, you have Pilu Pilu. If there's 4 tries, the newspapers are ripped up, it's thrown on the field. Like, what is that coming from Oz in a different background? What is that like to experience? Because for other people that have never experienced it, like they've got no idea coming in. But to have that as your home game ritual, to be built up by that every single game, it's a nice feeling, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an amazing feeling. Like I said, it just makes you want to play for the town, for the fans. Even walking into the games. How you just walk into the sheds and there's like 100-meter line up, and there's like maybe 1 meter tunnel. You just got to walk past all the fans just cheering, touching you, and like experiences like that you won't get back home in Australia. So it almost gives you a feeling like you can't lose at home, pretty much. It gives you that probably your 24th man kind of.
You mentioned that Berlanda Metro has obviously got a lot of faith in the coaching structures in place at the club at the moment. And they are that Pierre Mignoni and Frank Azema have both been involved right at the top this season. So how does that work in terms of their kind of relationship and who does what and the day-to-day kind of running of the club?
What I have seen, like they take turns doing the pre-game speeches. Like one week Pierre will do it, the next week Frank will do it, and I think they really balance each other out. Like Pierre, he's a he's a really hard header. He just wants to explode at all the players if we're doing stuff wrong and playing shit.
Mate, classic scrum half. They don't change.
Yeah, but Frank is kind of the mellow one, and like he calms them down a bit, and I think like I said, they just really balance each other out, and they've been working really well together this year. We didn't know how it was going to be when it first happened, but I think it's worked out really well.
And in terms of delivery, so does that mean like is one of them more in charge of systems? Is one more defensively angled? Is one more attack, or do they just jointly present everything? Like how does it work as a pair? What are their sort of roles and what are they tasked with?
Pretty much, I think Pierre looks after the defense side of things and mostly works with the forwards. And then Frank does the attack and then does most of the work with the backs, and he comes up with all the moves and stuff. And so like I said, they really share the workload. There's no one's higher than the other.
And obviously now Frank being announced, he's moving back to Perpignan. So you're missing the cool, calm, collected one next year, and you're just going to have Pierre yelling all the time next year. How's that going to work?
Yeah, I don't know. Frank, the boys are going to miss Frank. Like he's been so good for us ever since he joined us mid-season last season, and the boys really get along with him, and he's really good. He has really good relationships with the players, but Pierre has good relationships with the players too. But he's a scrum half. He's very passionate about your game and about winning. And sometimes living in Toulon and the lifestyle that we live, we do sometimes need to kick up the ass. So it might be okay.
And they're the bosses, but some of the specialist coaches at Toulon are very interesting as well. You got Freddie Michalak, who is obviously French legend. What's his kind of remit and what's he in charge of? What's he like to work with?
So he does most of our skills drills. Like he comes up with some stuff I've never seen before, and it's probably why he's such a skillful player, and I think he's really helped the forwards with all their passing games and seeing what the right options are and stuff. And he's got all these drills that you think of, like reaction times with the lights and then passing and then stuff like that. But he's been so good for the club.
You're responsible for Sergio's kicking game as well.
Yeah, I'm sure Fred will take credit for that too.
Is Big Richie Gray still there, the big Scotsman? Is he still looking after you? Mate, he's a great boy. So Richie was my under-18s coach, my first ever Scotland age grade coach. And he's now been around Montpellier, Lyon, and Toulon. Is he still looking after your contact elements as well? Because he's a great big guy.
Yeah, he comes around maybe 2 times a month. But most of the boys are like, every time they see him walk into the cover, like, fuck, Richie's here. We're gonna have to hit rucks. But then all the foreign boys are like geeing him up, saying, "Yes, Richie's here, Richie's here." And then when we hear he's about to leave, the next day we're like, "Oh fuck, man! I wish he was staying a bit longer so we can hit more rucks." But no. But in saying that, every week that he comes and does the ruck drills, normally the week rucks are normally on point. So he's really good for us.
He's a good man too. He's good comedy value as well. He's great. He's great to have around the club as well. Like as much as your contact will be improving, he's a good egg. He's a good man to have in a team too.
He's awesome. He's such a good bloke.
Has he told you any stories about Johnny at under 18 level, under 19? No,
not yet. But I'm definitely going to ask him. I see him again.
And then, of course, you've got Romain Poit as well. This is a trend, particularly in French rugby, where you get referees coming in as coaches. We've asked at Montpellier, haven't we, Johnny, about the influence there. What about at Toulon and Romain Poit? Obviously, the most senior French referee we've ever seen in the game. But as a coach, what's he in charge of specifically? And how is he kind of going from poacher to gamekeeper, if you like?
Yeah, initially we thought like, oh, that's a bit weird. We're going to hire a referee to help us coaching, but he's been really good. Like every week he gives us a rundown of why things were penalties and why the referees gave away this penalty or this penalty shouldn't have been a penalty. But he's been really good. Before every captain's run, he gives us a rundown about the coaches and how they kind of operate. Like this ref is really hard on the breakdown, or this ref is really hard on the offside line. So just putting those little things in the back of your mind, I think, helps every weekend. And he has a lot of time, so because he sends every single player like individual clips of your game. Saying, "Oh, great job! You did a great backing game, and like you've got to keep your tackle height down here." And but he's been good, really good.
And given the status he has in the game in France, Johnny, I imagine he's probably WhatsApping all the referees as well, saying, "Come on, Toulon games coming up."
Leaning on it's lobbying. That's what it's lobbying. This isn't coaching. This is leaning on the referee panel. Mate, it's incredible. Enough about referees. Enough. Dan Biggar. Dan Biggar calling the shots in, coming in, taking the 10 jersey. How's he settling in, and how impressive is his French already? It's ridiculous.
He's putting us all to shame. I've been here for 4 years and I can't speak as good as him. And all the French boys giving me shit that I can't speak French, and he's been here for 2 months and he can speak French now. But Dan, such a cool head, can manage the game. Like on the weekend, we only had 14 players, but he managed the game so well. I think he pulls us aside and says, "Look, we're not chasing the game here, so let's just do the right things, play down the right end of the field, and just try not to give away any points."
And maybe not with his French, if you're saying yours is a little bit rusty still. But have you been helping him off the field? Because he's a good family guy, and obviously you work with him closely on the field in the positions you play. So have you been kind of showing him the best restaurants, coffee bars, that kind of thing?
Nightclubs?
Oh, I think he's a bit settled down now. Too old for that stuff. But yeah, well, when he can, he asks where to go. But he's a lot of people, if they know a big superstar is coming to town, a lot of people reach out and say, go to this place. So he's settled in really nicely. He's a bit big dog because he lived in Saint-Tropez like for 2 weeks.
Of course he did. Of course he did.
I was like, mate, you're living the life and you're just living in Saint-Tropez.
And speaking of big dogs, we've said that, the Galactico era is over. It's not all the big names anymore. Dan Biggar, Cheslin Colby, arguably the biggest star in world rugby at the moment. So what's he like to be around?
Cheslin is probably the status that he has is probably the most humble person I've ever met. He's always trying to make time for everyone to get together, put on barbecues, go have dinner together as a group. But he's on the field is just ridiculous. Like you have there's nothing on, and I just give him the ball, the do your thing, and he's just crazy. But we've become pretty close off the field, Cheslin and I. So pretty lucky enough to call him a friend.
Mate, how good a backline is that to be part of? Like when you've got Bigger inside you, you've got Cheslin Colby, you've got Vizea at 13, who's an absolute freak show as well. You got Emmerich Luke in the backfield, who's like incredible young talent. Like, what's it like? It must be great fun pitching up for training, having a laugh, and then going to work with those boys.
Oh, it's amazing, especially with Gavin Villiers coming back too. Just looking at training and seeing the backline, I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like we just go through the hands and see if someone can do something, and like even the Jutta Wanikolo coming up. Oh my god,
I was going to say you missed him out.
Yeah,
I named half. I was like, even just with half, it's ridiculous. But that's it. With all these boys, not everyone starts. That's the incredible thing. The depth of talent you have as well.
Exactly. Like we're wondering, like, what are they going to do when Gavin comes back? Because Jutta's killing it. We've got Cheslin Colby, and I think that's why they decided to put Cheslin at the back last week. So that back three, I think, for me, I think is probably one of the best in the world.
And we mentioned that you grew up in Australia, played for them under 20 level, also played against the Barbarians. You were involved in plenty of squads. I think you played under Michael Checker. I think Dave Rennie called you up as well. So was it kind of frustrating for quite a period of time getting so close to being fully capped, but not actually getting capped?
Yeah, at the time it was very frustrating, and it was probably one of the big reasons why I left Australian rugby. The year that I did play against the Barbarians, Checker came up to me and he was like, "Oh, look, if you play well, we might pick you for the spring tour." And I thought I played pretty well. I think I scored about 20 points that game because I was kicking and I scored 2 tries, I think. And I thought I did enough to make the squad. But then they announced the squad about 3 days later, and I didn't get a call or anything. I just saw it on the team list that I didn't make it. So I was a bit down there for my last season at the Reds. So I was probably kicking stones a bit. And then like you said, when I came to France, like just gave me a whole new perspective on rugby and made me fall in love with the game again. And then I just went back for a holiday, I think last year, end of last season. 2 seasons ago now, maybe 2 seasons ago now, and Dave Rennie found out I was in the country, so and he said he's watched a few of my games, and he just was like, "Oh, look, when is your flight back to Australia, to France?" And I said, "Oh, I'm leaving in 2 days." And then he says, "How would you feel about joining the squad for the tour?" And I was like, "Are you sure? I might need to ask my club," because I was a bit scared, because I was like, I need to start preseason in 2 days. And then luckily enough, the club was happy to let me go for the tour with the Wallabies. Unfortunately, didn't get a crack as well, and I thought I was training pretty well. And then, but I think Dave was getting a bit of heat from Australian rugby, saying it's not a good look if they bring someone from overseas that's not capped and then playing them. So I think that's another reason, another factor of why I didn't really play. But for me, it was a blessing, because imagine if I did get at least one game for the Wallabies, and then I wouldn't be able to play for Samoa.
Exactly. And that was going to be my next question. So, like, the weirdness of the politics of being taken. So they know you're a French-based player. They've asked you to tour, and then not playing. That's even worse. In that, like, if you're going to take me and I'm going to miss a preseason with Toulon, make it for a reason. It's because I'm going to become a Wallaby. But the irony now is them missing their opportunity to cap you and you moving to Samoa and pledging to play for them. How did that come around? So now that Australians been shifted, they've missed their opportunity twice. If you play well, you're going to play. You don't, and then going on spring tour and not getting capped. How did the conversations then shift, and then you start playing for Samoa?
Well, to be fair, Dave Rennie was pretty straight up with me, saying, "Look, I really want to pick you, but I can't." And then I asked him, then what was the point of bringing me in and just to hold pads or make the numbers or something like that? But he was straight up with me saying he doesn't know what the situation with the rules are going to be and if they can even pick overseas players in the future. And he's like, he didn't want to jeopardize capping me, and then the rules change, and then I can't play for Samoa. And I think that's how everything rolled about. And then, but Mapasua was always on my back for a couple of years there, asking if I wanted to play for Samoa, and I was at the time I was ready to play for Samoa, and then the Wallabies called me up again, and then I said, "Oh, I'll give it another crack and see what happens to Mapasua," and then I think everything worked out for a reason, and then couldn't be happier that I got capped for Samoa at the last autumn series.
And now you fast forward to being on the eve of a World Cup in France, where you live, where you play your club rugby with Toulon, and you get to represent Samoa in France in a World Cup. Just how much you're looking forward to the preparations and then the competition arriving?
Oh, mate. I'm so excited, especially to represent Samoa and my family. Like, when my family found out that I was going to play for Samoa last year in the autumn series, like they were over the moon. Like I told them when I told them I made the Wallabies squad, they weren't that happy. They weren't as happy for me when I was with them. But as soon as I said I was playing for Samoa, they were really happy with that, and I was really happy to do that for my family and for myself, and to finally be an international player. But for the World Cup to be in France, it's just unreal. Especially, like I said, rugby in France is probably it's the right time to be in France if you want to be a rugby player. So yeah, it couldn't have worked out any better.
100%. And when you look at that pool, so you've got England, Japan, Argentina, and Chile. Like, how much are you looking for? Any of those you're looking forward to particularly? Which one are you looking forward to most?
You got a decent chance there.
100%.
Look, I'd like to compete against the best. So I think the best team in that pool probably will be England at the moment. But the way World Rugby is going at the moment, anyone can beat anyone at any stage. So I think we have a good chance in that pool. And but England will probably be the one I'll be looking forward to if I get the chance to play them.
And what do you make of the change in World Rugby's allegiance rules? Because we had Jordan Taufua on, who's clearly benefiting, and it is benefiting the Pacific Islands as it was intended to do so. It's also benefiting teams like Scotland, but we'll forget about them. But it's kind of giving you a better shot at a World Cup, isn't it?
Exactly. It's just leveling the playing field a bit more, and it's like I said, it's like putting the best players in the world at the World Cup. Like you got players like Israel Folau. If you look at that Tongan backline, a lot of them played for Wallabies or All Blacks, and now they're eligible to play for Tonga. And it's just putting the best players on the biggest stage, and that's what the World Cup is about.
And what we spoke a bit about Michael Cheika sort of maybe not being true to his word. Dave Rennie was up front, but clearly his hands were tied a little bit politically. Talk us through Silala Mapasua. What's he like?
Mapasua is a typical Samoan, just cool and calm. Really nice to the players. He lets his assistant coaches. We've got a really good coaching staff, like especially the backs. We got Tusi Pisi, we got Tana Umanga. Well, so he doesn't really need much help there. And plus, Maps was a really great center back in the day too. So I think he puts a lot of faith into his coaching stuff. But he's really good to get along with, and he still keeps in contact during the year. So he's look, I'm really lucky that he's the coach, and he and that he played center as well. So I think he likes me a bit.
Yeah, for you as a number 12, that's not a bad little coaching group there. You got Tusi Pisi, who won God knows how many caps at 10. You got Tadaro Munga, I think we all know about him. And then, like you say, Mapasua, not a bad centre.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think when I first got my first number 12 Samoa jersey, he said, don't let this jersey down.
Mate, he's a legend. Mate, if we look ahead quickly, top 14 rugby, the run, and you now got that final in the Challenge Cup against Glasgow on Friday the 19th, I think it is, which will be absolutely huge for the club again on that scene. But if we look at the run, and you're currently sitting in 5th, you've got games left. You've got La Rochelle this weekend. You're away to Racing, then at home to Bordeaux. You making it comfortable in the 6? It's going to be tough, eh?
No, it's going to be tough. If you look at the ladder, it's so close from 1 to 8. Like if we lose, we can drop all the way down to 8th. If we win, we can go all the way up to 3rd or something. So every game's a must win from here on out. So we're going to take every single game really serious. And I haven't played finals since I've been here, so it's a pretty big goal for not only me but the team to play finals footy.
2 of those 3 games are at home, though, Johnny, and they feel unbeatable there. So it's all right. It's fine.
I was going to say as well, see when you were talking about that earlier, when you go in and you've got that like 750-meter tunnel, like human tunnel to get in, and they're all cheering you and you feel invincible. Mate, the away team has to do that as well. So every time I did that at Toulon, you were getting salted, you're getting stuff thrown at you, you're getting spat. Like that's the other side. So you go there and you're like, we're never going to win. But like the first team that you're up against, La Rochelle, they're coming this weekend. You've seen obviously what they did to Exeter at the weekend. You know loads about them. Like, what are you expecting from them coming to town this weekend?
Oh, they're just going to be physical. Like, they're probably one of the most physical teams in the comp. In saying that, we've got a pretty big pack as well, and we're pretty physical as well. So, look, it's going to be tough. Hopefully, we're hoping that they're a bit run down from the game last week, but no, I think it's going to be a really good game in Marseille, and it should be a good one. But we'll be ready.
Have you played at the Velodrome before?
Yeah, I've played Toulouse twice there.
And that an enjoyable experience? You haven't had the best record against Toulouse there, eh? So, like, what is the, like, in terms of mentals and the difference psychologically of going and playing at the Velodrome, is it different for you as a playing group?
It is different. It kind of feels like an away game until you run out and you see all the red and black jerseys, and then once you're on the field, it kind of feels like a home game. But I think we probably would have preferred to play in Mayol but it is what it is. But the Velodrome is amazing. Like I played against Toulouse last year, and I think we had like 60,000 there. And it's just, I was talking to Eben Etzebeth after the game. He's like, that's like a international experience, that kind of game. The Velodrome's always special to play.
It's a tricky dynamic that for a club, isn't it, Johnny? Like you make the decision obviously way in advance, but it's right at the business end of the season when the mile factor would be massive. Commercially, it's brilliant, brings in a load of extra revenue. But if you don't beat La Rochelle, could have a massive knock-on effect.
Well, mate, the best example, or the closest example for me is Bayonne. So Bayonne were in the top 6 and they were unbeaten all season. They take one game down to San Sebastian to play against Po. They lose it. They drop out the top 6. So there's a performance element that you want to be at home for those home comforts, for the madness of your home crowd. But then there's the commercial aspect of running a club and the ticket money that they know they're going to get in, that they know if they can double the coffers, they want that gate receipt. So it's tricky. And as Duncan said, like you look at the top 8 now, one loss and you're out the top 6. So it comes down to really fine margins. So hopefully for you boys this weekend, you can nick La Rochelle easily. They're cruising, so they don't need the win. They don't need the win.
I told them just rest your players for the European final, you know.
Unfortunately, you both got European finals, so
exactly.
And just finally, obviously, from those kind of, I imagine, quite dark days when you move to Toulon, you get an Achilles injury, there's COVID. You're now signed up to 2025. They've offered you a new deal. You've got a long time there. You're clearly loving life. So a World Cup on the horizon at the end of this year. Things couldn't be better, could they?
Nah, it couldn't be better. Like I said, once I came back from that injury, just loving the game, loving how I grew as a rugby player, grew as a person, playing decent footy, and I was lucky enough for them to approach me early and extend my contract for another 3 years. And I had a few offers back home in Australia, but I was like, I can't say no to this this lifestyle, and they've done so much for me. So it's pretty hard to say no to Toulon.
You definitely made the right choice. You'll be there with Samoa at the World Cup, and you've avoided that Eddie Jones training camp with the Wallabies. No one wants to be part of that anyway.
I've heard about those. I'm pretty glad I'm not there.
Cheers. A massive good luck at the World Cup later this year and with Toulon.
Thanks, mate.
Cheers, mate. All the best this weekend.
See you, mate.
Good story, that, Johnny. Clearly so close to playing for the Wallabies, but had a lucky escape, arguably, you could say.
Yeah, a lucky escape, but just the way these directions change course so quickly now, especially if you've got 2 or 3 different strands to where you could play. You look at Manny Miafu as well and the different options he has. These guys aren't alone, like phenomenal athletes. And yeah, but you could say un mal pour un bien, as they would say here, a bad thing for a good thing. But ultimately, Australia's loss has been Samoa's gain. And Toulon's gain as well, in that he's been absolutely class to watch the past couple of seasons for Toulon, going from strength to strength and growing as well with his stamp on the game and that backline that's phenomenal. So the fact that he'll be representing, as he mentioned, the pride that his family had and the excitement they had, that's where you see how important it is that these boys get the chance to represent the country that really matters to them. So the Wallabies, yes, would have been great, but you can see that Samoa just means so much more, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, and I suppose by a lucky escape, I mean, we didn't ask him to delve deep into it, but I know he was really passionate about playing for the Wallabies. It's what he really wanted, to wear that green and gold jersey. But with the state of flux that rugby is in at the moment, and clearly he was caught right in the middle of it, Dave Rennie was like, probably would have capped him, but the rules kind of meant that he didn't. But yeah, he was there kind of holding tackle bags. So the last thing you would have wanted is for him to get a cap or two. And then it's like, well, we can't really pick you for the World Cup anyway.
Well, that's it. And that's also, I think, where you have to say that Dave Rennie has been incredibly fair as a coach in that he could have captained. Me being selfish and thinking as we're chatting, I was like, you just want to be capped and get on that. But no, like Dave realized that there's a bigger picture out there and he didn't understand the rules and the regulations. And was he then trapping him in something that he didn't need to be trapped in? So I think you have to say kudos to Dave Rennie as well for not screwing him over and allowing him to have that freedom and that choice further on. So it was really kind of him.
Right, we'll look ahead briefly in a minute, but we should find out what your meter moment of the week is, Johnny.
Mate, we talked about it already. It could have been La Rochelle. It could have been the ambiance in Bordeaux, but it was our favourite Italian. It was Sergio Parise with another worldie of an assist just outside the 22. Duncan said he's called it, which has taken a little bit of the luster off it for me. I was just hoping it was Sergio being Sergio, spotting the space in the backfield. But in any case, perfect execution, drops the ball on the boot, grubbers the ball through the first try of the game for Toulon. An incredible bit of execution and skill set from a back rower and number 8, which I absolutely love. So the meter moment of the weekend is Sergio Parise, man of the match, a world of an assist, and generally just being a legend again for Toulon at the weekend. Some player.
You had to do a double take. You thought it was damn bigger, and then you see that big bald head. No, Sergio chipping it through. That was Johnny's meter moment of the week, and Meter is the world's #1 wireless meat thermometer, recently making over 20 million cooks better with their game-changing app and completely wireless Bluetooth meat probe. You can use it on a barbecue, in the oven, or in a pan, and you can get your hands on one at meter.com. Plus, you can get 10% off any full-price item. All you have to do is enter the code FrenchPod10 at checkout. That's FrenchPod10, and you'll get 10% off any full-price item at meter.com. I imagine you've got yours out right now, Johnny. It's about 30 degrees there, isn't it?
Mate, it was 30 degrees yesterday. I was down at the lake in Hossegor, and I actually do have a Côte de Boeuf ready to go. As soon as this is done, I'm upstairs and I'm making a Côte de Boeuf for the family. So you're absolutely right. And the meter will be getting used. Yes.
We will just briefly look ahead to this weekend's top 14 then, and then you can get the meter going. 3 rounds left. We chatted a little bit to Duncan about it. They've got a massive game. It is so tight.
It's so tight. And I think you look through, so you got Toulouse on 71 points, La Rochelle 70. And then this is where from 3 to 8, it's so condensed. Stade Francais 64 points, Bordeaux 58, Toulon 57, Lyon 56, Racing 56, Bayonne 54, even down to Cast and Montpellier with 49 points. So really 4th to 8th, anything could happen. Any type of combination of those sides could realistically still make up the top 6, which, as we know, means knockout rugby, but it also means Champions Cup rugby next season, which is absolutely massive financially for these clubs. So loads to play for. Again, every single weekend, the top 14. Now we get to the crunch end of the season. But at both ends of the table, we didn't even mention there, but you still got Pau and Perpignan trying not to be 13, so they're scrapping to get away and fight it out for 12th position. But the big games of the weekend, Toulon, La Rochelle, we can't get away from that one. That will be absolutely massive. Toulouse, Bordeaux, Bègles on Sunday night will be huge as well. Pau playing against Cass, Lyon against Perpignan, all trying to avoid 13th, and Clermont, Stade Francais as well. Stade Francais trying to cement their 3rd position with a win away at a stuttering Clermont, who just announced my old teammate Benjamin Urdabijeta, 37 and a half years old, has just signed a 1+1 with Clermont. If you're talking about longevity and dragging it out, oh my days, has he done well. We talked about him last week, but that is some contract to be signing age 37. So well done, Benji, who's an absolute legend of a bloke as well. But yeah, another weekend of huge top 14 games coming up.
And looking at the fixtures, the relegation picture could be clearer. As you say, if Brive lose away, I know they might not be mathematically down, but they will be bottom. You would have thought they probably already are going to finish there. You got Perpignan away to Lyon, and Lyon obviously scrapping for every point to try and get in the top 6. But Pau at home to Cast, a game which you could see them certainly winning. So that could kind of look a lot clearer after the weekend.
Yeah, but essentially Montpellier, Brive, top 14 champions against Brive, you're thinking that's a foregone conclusion, but whole Cast again's a 50-50. Jeremy Davidson's come in, Cast won away from home the past couple of weekends. They've looked much better. And Perpignan as well. It's weird, the emotion that goes into these games. What can you get out of yourself to save a club? And you just can't write them off. So like Perpignan, yes, they're down the wrong end, but they still play a decent brand of rugby. They throw together some really decent rugby. So that's not a foregone conclusion either at Lyon. So loads of big games, loads of excitement. I'll be looking forward to watching it this weekend, as will you, Tim. But yeah, the madness is going to keep on going for another couple of weekends.
Thanks, Johnny. A big thanks to Duncan for joining us as well. And thanks to all you guys for listening. Make sure you hit subscribe, leave us a nice review if you can. Check us out on Rugby Pass and on YouTube. And we'll be back with another episode next week. Au revoir, Johnny.
Caught the buff time. Cheers, Tim.
Get the meter out.